Lulu, I know that you do think that I've been fooling all along. No matter what I do, I somehow know that you always seem to get me wrong. Lulu, I wouldn't fool you. I'm always saying nice things to you. I'll take you in the country each Sunday for a trip, and as we climb the hills I'll walk behind in case you slip. Lulu, I wouldn't fool you in anything I say or do. I'll take you to the seaside, not very far from town, and as we lay upon the sands we'll both get nice and brown. And if the sun should scorch your back, I'll always turn you round. I wouldn't fool you, Lulu. Now, here's a funny thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is a funny thing. I went home the other night, and I caught the wife in the front room sitting on a white horse in the nude. I said, who are you supposed to be? She said, I'm Lady Godiva. I said, Lady Godiva was a great tipster. She was the greatest tipster. She put all she had on a horse. She said, what do you think I'm doing? Well, the following night I went home, and I caught the wife again. I caught her in the arms of the milkman. I said, this can't be right. I said, it's a Coleman we owe the money to. I must be the best husband in the world. I keep going home. I said to the wife, I said, do you believe me when I say I love you? She said, I do. I said, do you believe me when I say I worship the very ground you walk on? She said, I do. I said, and do you believe me when I say I would die for you? She said, I do. I said, then you must be raving mad. Not bad, is it? She said, I get very lonely when you're away. Only last week, she said, a burglar broke in. I said, did he get anything? She said, yes, I thought it was you. Here! She said, I half killed him. That's covered that one up, isn't it? She said, I'm going out. She said, I'm going out tomorrow. She said, and I want you to do all the washing. So I said, all right. So I got all the clothes out, and I put them in the washing machine. And when I took them out, her brassiere was all in holes. So I went to a shop, and I said to the girl, I said, I want a brassiere. She said, what bust? I said, I don't know. I think it wore out. I don't know. She said, no. She said, I mean, what size? I said, 14. She said, there isn't such a size. I said, there must be. I said, I take a 7 bowler hat, and that fits one of them. Oh, dear. You can't help liking him, can you? It's like... I have the best wife in the world, though I say it myself. The other one's in Africa. She went to the pictures yesterday, and when she came home, she told me she'd changed her seat 14 times. 14 times. I said, were you molested? She said, yes, eventually. Clever. I was standing in a pub, and a chap said to me, he said, Max, you look fed up. I said, I am fed up. I've just heard the news on my daddy, and I'm a little bit worried about it. He said, well, what does the wife think about it? I said, that's what I'm worried about. She doesn't. No! Yes! You're too quick. You're too quick. Too quick. Just then a chap walked in, and I thought to myself, I know you. I looked at him and I thought, yes, I know you. I said, hello, Russell. My goodness, you've changed. You have changed. The last time I saw you, you had a black beard, and now you're without. I've never seen such a change in a man. You have changed. And if I remember rightly, you stood about 6'4". Well, you can't be more than 5 feet now. You have changed, there's no doubt about it. And you were so thin. And look at you now, you're about 16 stone. Never seen anything like it. He said, now listen, he said, for your benefit, I don't know who you are. He said, and I've never had a beard. He said, I was never 6'4", and my name is not Russell. So I said, oh, so you've changed your name as well, eh? Well, after we'd had a few drinks, I went home. I gave the wife a kiss. She said, drunk again? I said, that's all right. I'll talk to you in the morning when you're sober. She hit me in the mouth and I closed up like a bank holiday. I wanted to be nice to her, you know, and I started calling her names like my little lamb, my little pet, my little dear. And then the animals got bigger and bigger. She said, I don't know why I ever married you. I said, you married me because you couldn't get anybody else. She said, oh, yes, I could. I could have married anybody I liked. I said, why didn't you? She said, I didn't like anybody. You're like this. I took her to a cabaret one night, and we sat down, and the waiter said, do you want food? And I said, why? Is there anything else? See? See? Quick like. So she said, there's a la carte roast beef Max Miller. I said, why do you call it a la carte roast beef Max Miller? She said, it's a bit near the knuckle. Now then. Not bad, is it? Well, after we'd eaten, the manager gave me the bill, £4.10. I said, this is wrong. £4.10, it should only be £2. What's the £2.10 for? He said, that's for the use of the cruet. I said, I never used the cruet. He said, it was there if you wanted to. So I gave him £2. He said, what about the other £2.10? I said, that's for kissing my wife. He said, I never kissed your wife. I said, she was there if you wanted to. The wife got up very annoyed, and she walked out. Well, she was annoyed, just because I questioned the bill, that's all. So I said, well, goodbye, mother of three. She said, goodbye, father of two. But she's not a bad woman, really. I don't know what I'd do without her, if I had the chance. She'd give anything away, good-natured. The trouble is, when she opens her mouth, she gives herself away. She's got a mouth, I'm not kidding. It's like the black hole of Calcutta. She fell off her bike the other day, just outside the house, and I went and picked her up. And I thought she'd hurt herself, and she was laughing. She's got the handlebars in her mouth. What a family I've married into, what a family. On their wedding day, somebody tied a pair of old shoes to the back of the car. And when we came into the church, I couldn't find her father. He was at the back of the car trying them on. Now, listen, I was in the garden the other day. I was in the garden doing a bit of digging, you see. And the wife said out, lunch is ready. You see, and she got a voice like a foghorn. You can hear her for miles. All the neighbours come out. So I said, what's for lunch? She said, rissoles. I said, well, cook one, I'll have an egg. Here, listen. You can't help liking him, can you? And the woman next door, oh dear, I can't get on with her at all, very nosy. Oh, she's nosy. She said, I heard you were herring again last night. She said, if I was married to you, I'd give you poison. I said, if I was married to you, I'd take it and all, don't bother. It's funny how I met my wife. She cocked one eye at me, and I cocked one eye at her, and there we stood, both of us cock-eyed. Here, listen. 20 women in a hospital, you see, and they were in the maternity ward, all in the maternity ward, and the doctor was walking around one morning, and he said to the first woman in the first bed, when are you expecting your baby? And she said, on the 21st of November. Now, he went to the woman next bed, and he said, when are you expecting your baby? She said, on the 21st of November. And he went right through till he got to the end, and there was a woman fast asleep, and he didn't want to wake her up. So he said to the woman in the other bed, when's she expecting her baby? And the woman said, I can't tell you because she didn't come with us on their shower bang trip. But though I talk a lot about my wife, I really do talk a lot about my wife, and it might surprise you to know, ladies and gentlemen, we're very happily married. 40 years of married life, and we've only had one row, and that started on our wedding day, and it's lasted up to now. I was courting her 20 years before I married her. 20 years before I married her. Well, I wanted to make sure like it wasn't just a passing fancy. You see what I mean? You've got to be careful, haven't you? And once a year, on our anniversary, I do this every year, I take her around to the registrar, that's the man who married us, and I'll kick the life out of him. Of course, when I married my wife, it was love at first sight. If I'd had second sight, I'd still been single. The fellow next door, he hates a sight of me. And he said to my wife, he said, I saw your husband this morning. I saw him on the beach with a blonde on his arm. She said, well, what do you expect him to have on his arm at his age? A bucket and spade? I spent half my life getting into trouble and the other half getting out. The wife said, what's that lipstick doing on your collar? It isn't mine. I said, I know it's not yours. You can keep your mouth closed long enough to put it on. Then she started to cry. And I hate to see a woman cry. I want to give her money, you know, when they start crying. So I took her little hand in mine and I twisted it and I twisted it until she dropped the knife. I was having a drink with a chap the other night and he was telling me all his troubles. After they closed, we went to a nightclub. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, I don't know what my wife will say when I get home. He said, well, don't worry, have another drink. I said, what will your wife say? He said, I'm not married. I said, then why do you want to stay out late at night? If you're not married, which I think is funny. We'll cross that one out. So, wait a minute, no, it's not finished. So he got into the car, he got into his car, and I said, you're not going to drive that car, are you? He said, yes. I said, but you're drunk. He said, I'm all right, I should be all right. So away he went, and he knocked a fella down. And he picked him up, gave him a few bob, then he rang up the police station, and the policeman said, what is it? He said, I've just knocked a man down, he said. He said, and I'm driving a car, and I'm drunk. The policeman said, where are you speaking from? He said, wouldn't you like to know? This one will kill you, this is good. Father, 2 sons and a daughter. One boy went to Oxford, the other one went to Cambridge. And the girl, she wasn't any good either. One day the boy came home from Oxford and he said, Dad, I'm in trouble with a girlfriend. Unless I give her £1,000, she's going to sue me. His father said, I've only got £2,000. But for the good name of the family, you shall have £1,000. The following day, the other boy walked in from Cambridge. He said, Dad, I'm in trouble with a girlfriend. Unless I give her £1,000, she's going to sue me. He said, I've only got £1,000. But for the good name of the family, you shall have £1,000. A few days later, the daughter walked in. She said, Dad, I'm in trouble. He said, that's better. This is where we collect. I must tell you about my little boy. He's a real scream. He's only 12, and the way he talks to me, you'd think he was about 13. Honest. He's a right scream. I went home the other night, there he was, in the front room, sawing the legs off the piano. He's got a sense of humour, there's no doubt of it. His school teacher called at the house the other day and said, your little boy's run away from school. I said, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of little boys run away from school. He said, what, with a schoolmistress? A little monologue as spoken from the mouth. There was an old cow from Huddersfield. No milk would that old cow yield. The reason why no milk she'd yield, she didn't like her Huddersfield. Here's another one. They make me laugh, I don't know why they do. And I've heard them lots of times. A little horsehair sofa in the corner stood. A youth, a maid were courting. So far, so good. A baby lay there sleeping, just where the couple stood. The maid was softly weeping. So far, no father. There's another one. Jack and Jill went up the hill on a Sunday morning. Jill came running down again. She heard the gypsies warning. A clever... I was only married a week, when I found the wife's nightdress on the bed. With fur around the bottom. I said, what's the fur around the bottom for? She said, my mother told me to keep my neck warm. I call my wife carefree. She doesn't care as long as everything's free. She said to me, you've never done a good turn in your life for anyone. I said, I don't know. I once did a good turn for a bad girl. I think I was very foolish because I don't think she'd do a good turn for me anymore. I took the wife out the other week on the back of my motorbike. On the back of the motorbike. And can she talk? Oh dear, she never stops talking. Yap, 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 all the time. And we were going along, I was doing about 50 miles an hour, I could still hear her talking. 60 miles an hour, she was still talking. 70 miles an hour, she was driving me mad, she was still talking. I looked through the glass and I saw a police cop following me, and I thought, hello, he's chasing me. So I started and I was away, doing 80 miles an hour. When all of a sudden he stopped me. He stopped and he got off. He said, listen, he said, I'm not going to pinch you for speeding. He said, but I want to tell you, he said, your wife has fallen off. He said, about 2 miles back. I said, thank God for that. I thought I'd gone stone deaf. My wife's always complaining she hasn't any clothes to wear. And it takes her 2 hours to put them on when we're going out. So I thought I'd teach her a lesson. I went home one night and I said, I've got 2 tickets for the theatre. She said, good, I'll go upstairs and get ready. I said, I should, they're for tomorrow night. An old couple thought they'd go to Bournemouth for a holiday. And when they got there, in the hotel, they got up into the room and she said, isn't it funny, she said, John, here we are in the same room, the same surroundings, the same pictures on the wall, everything the same as we stood 50 years ago today. She said, don't you remember how eager you were to kiss me? You didn't give me time to get me stockings off? He said, you'll have plenty of time tonight to knit yourself a pair. Here. I took the wife to Bournemouth one week. The manager, he said to me, he said, we're full up. I said, but surely, I said, you can put us in somewhere. He said, well, he said, you can have the bridal suite if you like. I said, the bridal suite? I said, we've been married 40 years. He said, well, you can have the ballroom, which you don't have to dance. Now, this may surprise you, and it may not. But I have 15 children, and I know 15 children is a lot of children, I know that. And I took them for a walk along the seafront, and they were all walking behind me, and a policeman stopped me, and he said, what have you been up to? I said, I haven't done anything. He said, you must have done something. He said, had that lot following you? Now, to get away from the wife, I took up golf, and one morning, a girl was standing on the tee. Oh, dear. And I said, would you like to play around? And she said, yes. So I did. And she smacked my face. I said, what's that for? She said, that's for nothing. Now do something. So I said to a chap who was near me, I said, would you like a game? He said, yes. So he put down a brand new ball, and he hit this ball almost out of sight, and when we got there, we couldn't find it. So he said, don't bother with it, leave it, it's all right, don't bother, come on, let's get on the next tee. We got on the next tee, he put down another brand new ball, he hit that, and he went in a river that goes right across the course. And the water was taking the ball away. He couldn't find it. He went to the next tee, he put down another brand new ball, and he lost that. I said, Jim, I can't understand. I said, why don't you put down an old ball now and again when you come to these kind of hazards, you see? He said, I've never had one. Before I was married, I was an insurance agent. And I knocked on the door, and a young lady answered the door. And I said, can I insure you? She said, no, thanks. I said, now listen, lady, I'll prove the value of this policy. Not only will it mystify you, but it'll be hard for you to believe the evidence of your own eyes. For the first 50 years, you'll pay twopence a week. When you're 90, you get £100. It's not a lot of money, but it's a nice start in life. She said, I don't want insurance, and I left her very healthy. And I was very tired at the end of the day, and I thought, well, I won't go home, I'll get put up somewhere. So I knocked on the door, and a navvy came to the door, and I said, I'm staying here. He said, well, stay there, and slammed the bloody door. I shall never forget my wedding day, and don't think I haven't tried. I shall never forget my honeymoon either. She talked half the night. She'd have talked the other half if I'd have let her. I gave her a sleeping pill. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to finish this first half of this record. I'm going to do Mary. No, I don't think I will. No, I don't think I will. No. Now, I think I'll do Lulu again. Lulu, I wouldn't fool you. Went in a swimming pool to cool you. I dive right off the deep end because I've got the knack. Then I can do the breaststroke while you're floating on your back. Lulu, I wouldn't fool you in anything I say or do. We'll swim around together, you like it, I am sure. We'll stay beneath the water for half an hour or more. Then I can teach you lots of strokes you've never done before. I wouldn't fool you, Lulu. That's it. You can't help liking him, can you? You may not believe this, ladies and gentlemen, but I can't get a girlfriend no matter how I try. And I do try, honestly, I do try. I go out at night in the dark, I go out in the dark with a golf club and a bat. I'll trip them up, knock them down. The other night I went out with a girl in the fog and missed. Gertie was a good girl till the day that she met me. Gertie was refined and liked to show her dignity. I told her that I loved her, then I asked her for a kiss. When I whispered in her ear, what happened then was this. She said she wouldn't, I'd an idea that she would. She said she shouldn't, but I told her that she should. She said she couldn't, 'cause she wanted to be good. She said she wouldn't, I thought perhaps she would. I took her to the pictures, thought now we won't be long. Put my arms around her, but she said you've got me wrong. When it was over, I tumbled what she meant. She was a good girl, and like a good girl, Gertie went. Yeah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there were four wrens standing on the station, Victoria Station. And they were all crying. So I said, come and have a cup of tea. So I took them into the cafe on the station to have a cup of tea. And the waitress brought the tea, and I said to the girls, which one's going to be mother? And they all started crying again. Now, a woman bought a dog, a little dog, a little chihuahua, you see. Yeah, a little chihuahua. And she was showing it to her girlfriend, and her girlfriend said, that's not right. What do you mean it's not right? She said, those little short hairs on it. Shouldn't have any little short hairs on it. It should be like velvet. She said, you want to do something about that? So she went to the chemist, see? And she said to the chemist, have you got anything to get rid of little short hairs? See? So the chemist said, well, he said, I'll make you something up. You come back in about half an hour, see? So she went back in half an hour, and he said, well, there it is. He said, now look, he said, I'll tell you what you do. You rub it on your legs. She said, it's not for me legs. It's for me little chihuahua. He said, well, in that case, don't ride your bike for a fortnight. I went to Paris last week, and I went in a cafe and sat next to a beautiful French girl. Now, I couldn't speak French, and she couldn't speak English, so I drew a bottle on the menu, and the fella brought a bottle of wine. Then I drew another bottle, and he brought another bottle of wine. Well, as time went on, in the early hours, about 2 o'clock, she drew a bed on the menu. Now, I couldn't make out how she knew I was in the furniture business. Never be another, will there? Never be another. Now, when I'm dead and gone, the game's finished. There's no doubt. I had a shocking dream the other night. A shocking dream. I dreamt 3 of my pals and myself, we went to hell. Yes. And when we got down there, the devil said to the first one, he said, what are you doing here? He said, I don't know. He said, I haven't done anything wrong. He said, I've never neglected the wife. He said, I don't go with women, I don't drink, and I don't smoke. I don't know why I'm here. He said, the other one, what about you? He said, well, I'm the same as him. He said, I've never neglected the wife. He said, I don't go with women, I don't smoke, I don't drink. I don't know why I'm here. And the third one, exactly the same. Then he came to me, he said, what about you, Miller? I said, I'm entitled to be here. I said, I've done everything wrong. I've neglected the wife, I've smoked, I've gone with women. He said, you're the boy I'm looking for. He said, do you know what I'm going to do? I said, no. He said, I'm going to burn the other 3 and you and I are going to have a night out. I thought you'd like that one. A fellow was selling coal. He was shouting out coal, and a woman put her head out the window. She said, I'll have a sack, bring it in. So he took it in, went right through the passage into the yard, and on the way back, she was standing at the drawing room. So he said, that'll be 16 bob. She said, I'll never pay for coal. He said, what do you mean you never pay for coal? She said, well, the other fellow, when he used to bring it in, he used to come in the drawing room, sit down, have a cup of tea and a chat. He didn't want any money. He said, well, I'll have a cup of tea and a chat then. And the next day he went down the same street, he was shouting out, coal for money. The fella said to me, he said, Max, do you believe in transmigrations of souls? There's one I've come out with there, haven't I? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you die, you come back something entirely different, you see? I said, no, I don't believe that. And as I was walking home, I heard a voice say, hello, Max, and I turned round, and it was a white horse, see? So he said, don't you remember me? I said, what? He said, don't you remember me? He said, I died a few weeks ago. He said, and I came back a horse. He said, and I'm pulling this coal cart around all day long. He said, and I'm sick and tired of it. He said, I said, well, why don't you tell the boss about it? He said, I should think so. If he knew I could talk, he'd have me shirt in coal as well. I said to a girl, I said, are you familiar with Shakespeare? She said, yes, she said. Matter of fact, I had dinner with him last night. I said, don't be a mug. He's been dead 100 years. She said, I thought he was quiet. A fellow of mine was going away for a few days. He was going to Manchester and he didn't know where to stay. I said, I'll tell you where to go and where to stay. And I told him, I said, it's a nice hotel. I said, the food's good, it's wonderful. And the beds, they're marvellous. And the boss is a very nice chap. And he doesn't charge you a penny. At the end of the week, as a matter of fact, he gives you a few quid to go home with. He said, have you stayed there? I said, no, but my sister has. Two magistrates had to appear in court on a charge of riding bicycles without lights. Right? So they turned up on the morning and they sat there, but nobody came. So once they said, I think we'll try each other. That's the best thing. Right? So one got in the box, the other one got on the bench. And he said, you're charged with riding a bicycle without any lights. Guilty or not guilty? He said, guilty. He said, all right, £5. They changed over. The other fellow got in the box and the other fellow got on the bench. He said, you're charged with riding a bicycle without lights. Guilty or not guilty? He said, guilty. He said, 14 days. He said, 14 days? He said, I only charged you a £5. He said, yeah. He said, we've got to put a stop to this, people riding bikes without lights. Yeah, what's the difference? I'll ask you a question and see if you can answer it. What's the difference between a girl getting out of a car and a rude joke? I bet you don't know, I'll tell you. Sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't. My little boy is as sharp as a knife. Sharp as a knife. His school teacher said, she's a nice girl too, the teacher. She said to him, how are you getting on now? How are you managing now your mother's away? Oh, he said, we manage all right. He said, matter of fact, he said, Dad and me sleep together. She said, that's not right. It's Dad and I slept together. He said, I don't know anything about that. I slept with him last night. I was walking through a forest the other day and I heard a cry in the distance like, oh. Not very loud, it wasn't very loud, like, you know. Oh. So I walked towards the cry and when I got there, there's a fella standing under a tree. Under a tree, practically in the nude with a bag of nuts in his hand. So I said, why are you crying? He said, what do you hear over the radio all the time? They're appealing for this, appealing for that. Give your old clothes to people who want them. He said, I've done that. I said, I can see that. He said, and give your money to the hospital. He said, I've done that. I said, well, I don't know why you're crying. He said, look what it says on that tree behind me. Give your nuts to the squirrels. There were 200 boys. There were 200 boys at the railway station, and they're going on their holidays. And the teacher said, now, we shall be in the train a long time, about 6 hours, and there's no corridor. You better all go to the cloakroom. Away you go. So they all went, and as one stood there, she said to him, now, go on, away you go. And he stood there. She said, if you don't go, I'll take you. He said, you can please yourself. He said, I'm a jockey. I'm going to Leicester. Do you know how the poor struggling typist got a fur coat? Stop struggling. Fella called at my house the other day. He said, Max, we're going to cut your phone off. I said, what for? I'm not in arrears. I'll pay every week. He said, no, it's not that. You've been using bad language over the phone. I said, who to? He said, the operator. I said, can I use it once more before you cut it off? He said, yes. I rang up the operator. I said, do you know what I told you to do with that phone this morning? He said, yes. I said, well, wait a minute, there's a fella bringing it round. Never be another, will there? Never. The girl said to me, I've just come back from my honeymoon. I said, did you like it? She said, did I like it? I liked it so much I think I'll get married. A girl joined the army as a man. Fella was telling me, I said, I can't see that at all. I don't get that at all. She couldn't get away with that. I said, how about when they all take a bath? Wouldn't they find out? He said, yeah, but who'd tell? A census taker, going from house to house, checking up on the children. So he said to a woman, he said, have you any children? She said, yes. She said, I've got 13, but I'm not having any more. Not now I've got my deaf aid. He said, what's that got to do with the deaf aid? Well, she said, every night when we used to go to bed, my husband used to say to me, you going to sleep or what? And I used to say, what? Two chaps went to Africa, now you'll like this, and they thought they could make a lot of money, make a fortune out of shooting lions, selling the skins. So away they went, and they built themselves a hut. And one said to the other, said, now you get on with the cooking, cook the lunch. He said, I'll go out and shoot the first lion. And away he went. He went out and he saw a lion, and he fired at it and missed it. And the lion chased him. And he just got back to the hut, just in time. As he opened the door, the lion went straight through, right into the kitchen. And the fellow said, there's the first one, skin him, I'll go out and get another one. When I joined the army, this will surprise you, when I joined the army, I joined the ATS. And one morning, I got all the girls on the parade ground. And I said, strip for Jim. I said, I'll be back in a minute. So I came back and there's one on there standing with her clothes on. I said, I thought I told you to strip for Jim. She said, I should think so. Well, we'll have a look at Jim first. I went to a nudist camp. I've never been in one. I went in one there and I saw the fellow who was in charge. I said, how do you keep the men away from the women? Oh, he said, it's easy. He said, we put all the women on one side of the hedge and all the men on the other side of the hedge. I said, I bet there's a lot of beating about the bush, isn't there? And I said to one of them, I said, you look a nice type of girl. She said, I shouldn't count on it. I said, you like the men I gather? She said, no, I like the men I gather. Two fellas walking up and down outside a maternity ward. And one said to the other, he said, this is a nice way to spend your honeymoon. A chap was telling me about his wedding night. He said his wife took off her wooden leg and put it in the top drawer. Then she took off her false arm and she put that in the top drawer. Then she took off her wig and she put that in the top drawer. He said, I just stood there wondering whether I should sleep in the bed or get in the top drawer. Fella said to me, he said, Max, how's the wife? I said, she's enormous. He said, what again? God. Two sailors and two girls walked into a pub and the boss said, I'm not serving those two girls. They're doubtful characters. The sailor said, doubtful? They're Stonewall certs. What are you talking about? Two chaps went to a football match and it started to rain. And one said, Charlie, go on and get my Mac, will you? So he went. And he came back. He said, I've got some bad news for you. He said, I saw your wife on the settee with a stranger. The fellow said, I've got some bad news for you as well. He said, we're losing 2-1. I saw a funny thing the other day. I should never forget it as long as I live. A crowd of people looking in a baker's shop. And being a bit nosy, I thought, well, I'll go over and have a look. And I went over. I've never seen anything like it. 2 tarts in the window, upside down. So I took one of them and gave the other one to my pal. Fella said to me, he said, Max, there's far too much unemployment in this country. I said, well, I could do something about it. He said, well, what would you do? I said, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd put all the women on one island and all the men on another island. He said, well, how would that solve the mystery? I said, well, the men would be too busy making boats. I saw a girl standing at a bus stop. I said, how do you do? She said, how do I do what? I said, please yourself. She said, I'm not a pick-up. I said, I wasn't going to pick you up. So we sat down and we waited for the bus. And I noticed on her leg she had a violin tattooed on her leg. And on the other leg she had a bow. And every time she crossed her legs it started to play, Don't Fence Me In. Now, she said, I want what I want when I want it. I said, you get what I've got when I've got it. I said to a pal of mine, what are you doing these days? He said, I'm working in a hospital. I said, what are you doing there? He said, I'm a masticator. I said, what's that then? What's a masticator? He said, I chew the bread for the poultices. I went to the airport the other day and I saw the largest plane I've ever seen in my life. It was about half a mile long, this plane, and the people were waiting there to get on, and the pilot, he was talking to them. He said, now listen, he said, when you get on this plane, he said, you go straight along as far as you can go, and on the left-hand side, he said, you'll see a big swimming pool. He said, on the right-hand side, he said, there's a dance hall. Now, he said, you come back to the other end, he said, and you're on the right-hand side, you'll find a skating rink, and down the other side, a big bar which holds about 200 people. He said, now then, he said, if you'll all get aboard and get your safety belts on, I'll do the best I can to get it off the ground. A pal of mine is mad Irishman. And I said to him, I said, Jim, you want to get all your money out of the bank, get it out of the bank because they're going broke. I said, I've got mine out. So he went to the bank manager, he said, Jim, can I have all my money? The bank manager said, certainly you can have it. He said, of course you can. He said, what do you want it in? 10 shillings, pound notes, £5 notes? He said, why, have you got it? He said, have we got it? We've got more money than we want. He said, oh, in that case, if you've got it, I don't want it, but if you haven't got it, I must have it. The wife was taking a bath the other morning, and a fellow started to clean the window. He was looking through the window, you see, and she jumped out of the bath and she stood there. She came into the world. And he looked at her and said, what are you staring at? Haven't you seen a window cleaner before? I went home the other night and the wife said, drunk again. I said, I'm drunk and you're ugly. And when I wake up in the morning, I said, I'll be sober, but you'll still be ugly. She said, let me tell you, sonny. She said, beauty runs in our family. I said, it must have galloped past you. This is all continental stuff I'm giving you, you know. Oh, yes, continental. No laughs, just charm, that's all it is. But you must admit I've got talent anyway. And I'm lovable. Here. I said to a girl, can I see you home? She said, no thanks. I know your type. Lure them, love them and leave them. And when you leave them, they're left. And when they're left, they're not right anymore. No thanks, I've had some. I said, let's go for a walk in the woods. And we'll pause and look at the moon. She said, we're going to the woods and we'll look at the moon, but keep your paws to yourself. She said, matter of fact, she said, I'm going to post my little woods. I said, what have you put down? She said, 3 homes and 3 drawers. I said, you've done it wrong. If your 3 homes win and your drawers are down, you've had it. I said, I'm looking for a girl who doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and doesn't make love. What I'm looking for, I don't know. Waste of time. A woman bought 3 eggs, and she put them in the larder. And that night a burglar broke in and took 2 of them. And she said, I hope before he cooks them, his conscience will prick him and he'll come back. And he did. He came back the same night and took the other one. I think that's about all, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before I sing my next song, I want to tell you about this. A girl, she was wearing a V-shaped sweater. And I said to her, I said, what does the V stand for? Victory? She said, no, virgin. I said, I bet it's a very old sweater. If I had my way, dear, I'd spend night and day, dear, doing all the nice little things you like me to do for you. I'd be satisfied, dear, to be by your side, dear, doing all the nice little things you like me to do for you. Now we are together, we're planning our little scheme. Should you ever leave me, you'll still be in my dreams. Wherever you may be, dear, give a thought to me, dear, doing all the nice little things you like me to do for you. On our wedding day, dear, the choir will proudly sing, as on your dainty finger I'll place a golden ring. Then you'll be my wife, dear, and I'll spend my life, dear, doing all the nice little things you like me to do for you. Bye-bye.